Hello, everyone. Welcome to PCD Vinyl World. I'm actually back after somewhat of a long absence. I was moving into a new house, and so I've been busy with that the past month or so. Finally got most of my stuff set up in my new man cave and everything, and I'll probably do a video tour of that soon. But see, a lot of people are doing contests and contest videos, so I figured I'd do something different. I do a ranking of the albums today. So today I'm going to rank the albums of Twisted Sister. So Twisted Sister usually gets the reaction of from both regular music fans and hard rock metal fans is they're just kind of a joke, which I really don't understand because they, were in that first wave of 80s metal and they were actually pretty heavy at the time. They got categorized as a hair metal band, but ironically they broke up in 87, which was sort of the start of what we know as hair metal. Bon Jovi, Winger, Slaughter, Warrant, and all that. So over the years, basically anybody that was from that first era, like Twisted Sister, Rat, Dokken, Rough Cut, on, they're also lumped in with the hair metal group, even though they predated that stuff. Bon Jovi even was first couple albums were part of that first group, but they exploded with Slippery When Wet, and that's sort of when the whole hair metal thing came to be. But anyway, they sort of faltered right when that type of music was exploding, unfortunately. So they only got 5 studio albums. They've reunited since the early 2000s several times. I think they went on a farewell tour a couple years ago after AJ Pero passed away. But other than a couple of new studio tracks, they've never recorded a reunion album. So just going to go over the 5 studio albums today and rank them. So first one, number 5, is their final studio album from 1987, Love Is for Suckers. This album was actually intended to be a Dee Snider solo album. And I guess the record company at that point wanted another Twisted Sister album. And I think for the most part, the guys really don't play on the album. By this point, AJ Pero had left the band, so Joe Franco was on drums. And it says additional guitars on here by Red Beach, of who went on to play with Winger. And also Bew Hill produced this, who produced the first few Winger albums. And Kip Winger actually does background vocals on here. So this does have a very Winger-ish sound. If you're a fan of Winger, you've never heard this album, you should probably pick it up. I don't really detect any of the songs that may have JJ French or Eddie Ojeda on them. They all sound like Red Beach to me. All the guitars sound like the first Winger album. All the solos sound like that. So I'd be very surprised if they play anything on this. But anyway, I'm ranking it the lowest. There's some okay songs. Wake Up the Sleeping Giant. It's pretty old school Twisted Sister style song. It's actually the only song from this album that they've played since they've reunited. Hot Love was the single from it. It's okay. Love Is for Suckers is pretty good. I'm So Hot for You, Tonight, Me and the Boys, One Bad Habit was pretty good. That one possibly I could hear maybe JJ French and the other guys playing on it. The final song on the album, Yeah Right, is pretty good. That sounds like classic Twisted Sister. It's got 4 bonus tracks on the Spitfire reissue. Feel Appeal, Statutory Date, If That's What You Want, all pretty shitty songs. But the final one, I Will Win, it's pretty good. I don't know why it wasn't on here because it only had 10 songs, so they should have added that on there. And ironically, too, they had sort of removed their makeup and costumes at this point. So overall, it doesn't really sound like Twisted Sister. It's more of in that Winger vein. So next up, coming in at number 4, might surprise people, but I'm going to rank Stay Hungry. And again, these are my, opinions on the album. It's not like it's dead set in stone. And one of the main reasons I'm ranking this one lowest is because, out of all of their albums, this is probably actually the one I'm probably grabbed the least out of all 5 of them. But their 2 biggest songs are on here: "Stay Hungry," "I Wanna Rock," of course, which I don't think anyone needs to hear again. Other than that, "Stay Hungry" is great, "Burn in Hell's" great, "The Price" is really good, and "SMF." The other songs, "Hara Tierra," "Don't Let Me Down," and "The Beast," are just kind of okay for me. I mean, overall, it's a pretty enjoyable album. I know D. Snider hates the production on it, and it does sound very thin compared to "You Can't Stop Rock and Roll." So I definitely, the production brings this down a notch for me too. But like I said, there are some, "Burn in Hell" and "SMF" are probably the best songs on here. But definitely their biggest album. I think it went 4 times platinum. Next up, sort of the album that really started the demise of their popularity, "Come Out and Play." They made the mistake of releasing a cover of "Leader of the Pack" as the first single off of here. And then they did a video for "Be Cruel to Your School," which has a lot of guest stars like Alice Cooper, Billy Joel. Kind of one of those jokey songs. I could see the metal community being sort of like, these guys are clowns at this point. But the rest of the album is actually really pretty heavy. "Come Out and Play," the title track, that should have been released as the first single. And I think it would have taken this album in a whole different direction. "I Believe in Rock and Roll," "Kill or Be Killed," "Looking Out for Number One," "Out in the Streets," "Fire Still Burns," "You Want What You Got." All of them are pretty heavy songs on this. So it's unfortunate that they released the cover of "Leader of the Pack" first, because I think that album would have been a lot more successful. And I think people at this point were pretty burnt out on them from MTV constantly playing "We're Not Gonna Take It" and "I Wanna Rock." "I Wanna Rock," though, does have a great guitar solo. One of the few J.J. French guitar solos. And the CD has an extra song on here, "King of the Fools," which is a pretty good track. So, coming in at number 2, their debut, "Under the Blade." So this came out on actually Secret Records, which was a punk label. And when they got signed to Atlantic Records, they remixed it and re-released it, and it actually has a different cover as well. So I actually prefer the remixed version of it, and it also has the song "I'll Never Grow Up" on it as well, which was the early single. I just think it's a lot more balanced sounding. The guitars and mid-range is more up front. This is very bassy sounding, not very dynamic at all. But the songs on here: "What You Don't Know Sure Can Hurt You," one of the great openers of all time. "Bad Boys of Rock and Roll," "Run for Your Life," "Sin After Sin," "Shoot 'Em Down," "Destroyer," "Under the Blade," "Tear It Loose," "Day of the Rocker." Every song on here is killer. So at this point, their first 2 albums, Twisted Sister, were really more in line with like Judas Priest than what they appeared to be. I remember seeing them, maybe it was during the "You Can't Stop Rock and Roll" era, on a like a kids talk show on Nickelodeon back in this era, and I was pretty blown away on how heavy they were at the time. If you don't know, ever seen Twisted Sister, D. Snider is one of the best frontmen of all time. He doesn't get the credit he deserves, and they've always been a great live band. They were big in England first, so I think this is why this record company signed them. This is actually produced by Pete Way of UFO and Wasted. So, if anything, you should get this one. And, of course, coming in at number 1, "You Can't Stop Rock and Roll." To me, this is one of the best metal albums of the 80s, period. Not just their best album. The production's great, real heavy. "Kids Are Back," "Knife in the Back," "Ride to Live," "Live to Ride," "I Am, I'm Me." "We're Gonna Make It." It's a great song. "I've Had Enough." I'll Take You Alive, and of course You Can't Stop Rock and Roll. Definitely their best album, best sounding album. Yeah, I saw Twisted Sister once after they were reunited. It was in the early 2000s, and it was actually at Great Adventure here in New Jersey. They came out in all their costumes, and they were great. And actually, Sebastian Bach was in the audience with his kids, and he came up and sang You Can't Stop Rock and Roll, so that was pretty cool. But I used to see Dee Snider all the time at the Birch Hill nightclub in New Jersey during the 90s with his solo band, and he was great all the time. Other than that, they have this collection called Big Hits and Nasty Cuts, Best of Twisted Sister. And it just has songs from the first 3 albums, Nothing for Love Is for Suckers, but has a bunch of live tracks from 12-inch singles. And Aaron Mutha-Elemacher has mentioned this before, but they do a version of It's Only Rock and Roll from the Rolling Stones, which is, to me, one of the great live performances of all time. It's like a 8-10 minute version, and he just keeps going on and on with the audience and yelling at them to get up and everything. It's at the Marquee Club in England when I first went over there, but this is definitely worthwhile getting. They put out this live at Hammersmith. This is during the Stay Hungry era. Pretty good as well. I think they do You Can't Stop Rocking. Not You Can't. Yeah, songs. It's songs from the first 3 albums, but it's pretty good here. And Club Days, there's 2 of these volumes. This one has their early singles they released locally, and some of their tracks they had actually before Dee Snider joined the band in the mid 70s when JJ French was singing, and they're pretty terrible, but they're interesting to hear. Also has the original singles pre them getting a record contract of Leader of the Pack, Under the Blade and Shoot 'Em Down, and I'll Never Grow Up. Comeback probably is the best song that's unreleased from them. They also have a volume 2 this, which I believe is more live stuff. But there you have it. I think they're definitely one of the most underrated bands. They get a bad rap for no reason, really. So if you're a hard rock metal fan, you should definitely check out You Can't Stop Rock and Roll and the first one, Under the Blade. And hopefully I'll be making some more videos soon, now that I'm all settled. And if you like these videos, please subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks.